You're listening to Toolbox of the Trades, brought to you by ServiceTitan, a podcast for top service professionals where we interview leaders for their best tips and tricks of the trades. Learn how industry trailblazers stay ahead of the competition and how you too can be at the forefront of an industry. Let's jump in.
The best thing you can do if you want to sell the business is to have loyal customers, have customers that keep calling you back, have repeat customers, because we look at that. We look at what is the customer base like.
Hello, contractors, and welcome to the Toolbox for the Trades. I'm your host, Jackie Aubel, and today's guest is John Okoyan, the owner of Rooter Hero Plumbing, located in both California and Arizona. John first discovered the plumbing trade when he was just 17 years old, after an unexpected tragedy required him to start looking for work. After a family friend, the owner of a commercial plumbing shop, gave John an apprentice position, he became hooked. Within the next 25 years, John would go on to build a plumbing enterprise spanning 2 states and generating $50 million in revenue. We discuss recruiting and marketing tactics, the best strategies for acquisition, as well as how John credits his success to hard work, focus, and remaining curious. Plus, we're offering a listener giveaway in honor of our first episode. Stay tuned to the end of this conversation to see how you can win an exclusive prize. Enjoy! So, John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I started as a plumber when I was 17. My dad passed away, and I dropped out of school to go into the trades. And I've been doing it ever since. And, plumbing sort of, to me, at this point, has almost been my calling, I feel like. And I really enjoy doing it. And I love the trades.
That's amazing. I'm sorry to hear about your dad passing when you were 17.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens.
Yeah. Did you take over his business?
He did. He was not a plumber. So he was a truck driver. And the story goes back to, we had bought a house about a year before he passed away. And my mom really didn't work. She was a housewife. My brother was in college. And so we sold my dad's truck. We had enough money to pay the mortgage for about a year or two. And I wanted to get out and get a job. And initially, I told my mom, I'll go drive the truck and I'll replace my dad's income. So my goal was to replace his income. So the trades actually allowed me to do that in plumbing and surpass it as well, and created a really good living for myself and my family.
How did you discover the trades?
So I went to work with a family friend. He was a one truck operator. He had a small plumbing company, and he did a lot of commercial maintenance work. So I worked with him for about a year, maybe about a year and a half. And that's where I learned all of my plumbing skills. And then after that, I went on my own.
Gotcha. So you apprenticed with him essentially?
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
And then talk to me about that journey. How did you go from apprentice to going off on your own?
So I remember the first day I was with him, his name is Arthur. He said, John, this isn't for everybody. So, we're going to go do some service calls. And at the end of the day, you tell me if you really like this or not, because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste mine, So I said, okay. So we went out on some service calls. I didn't even know there was crawl spaces back then. I was pretty mechanically inclined because I'd always work on my dad's truck and do stuff like that. So we went into some crawl spaces, fixed some pipe. I was all muddy. I got out. I'd go get tools for him, and I'd hold things while he was working. And it was the end of the day, and we're on our way back, to his house. He had a home office where he'd store his truck. And I told him, I really like this. I don't mind getting dirty. I don't mind, being in, tiny areas. I'm not claustrophobic. So this is good. I like it. And I want to do this. And he said, okay, great. So I'll see you tomorrow at 7. And that was it.
That's awesome. You mentioned that you're mechanically inclined. What is it about the plumbing trade that really appeals to you?
Well, what I like about the plumbing trade is that, I like the challenge of just fixing stuff. Now I get to do other kind of fixing. I work more on, like trying to solve bigger problems. But back then I just really enjoyed figuring out what the problem was and then figuring out what you had to do to fix it. And it always changes. I still go out in the field once in a while, and I'm amazed on how much technology has advanced and how different things are when it comes to the plumbing system as well. And but I really enjoy fixing things, you know.
Totally. Yeah. I'm always surprised by how high tech the plumbing industry is. I mean, I'm not a plumber, but being someone who operates within the plumbing space, I'm always like, whoa, look at that new tool. That looks very high tech.
Yeah.
And a lot of my owners that I spoke to like talk about all these tools that now make it possible and more accessible and not as hard on the body, which it traditionally was, I believe.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha. So you came back to work you told Arthur you liked the job. He was like, I'll see you tomorrow at 7. So you continued working with him for a couple of years. So how did you get from there to becoming the owner that you are today?
So it took a lot of just working on myself. You know, I didn't really like school, but I love to learn. I discovered that I was a learner. I wasn't really so crazy about the learning environment I was in, but so what happened is I continued to work for him, and I started out as sort of an apprentice. It was, I think back then it was about $25 a day is what he was paying me. And I got to a point where I was doing the work on my own. I had an apprentice with me, and I'd go there in the morning, I'd get the truck. I had somebody that helped me, or if he wasn't in, I'd just go out on my own and fix everything. And I got to a point where I got to the maximum of what he can afford to pay. And I had a talk with him. I said, look, I love the trade. I love what we're doing. And, you know, I need to make more money. So what can we do? Can we grow the company? Maybe let's add a second truck. I'll help you grow it. And he said, no, I'm happy being a one truck operator. I don't want the headache. John, he said, you have a lot of choices. He goes, you did really well. And your choices, you could go work for a big, you know, plumbing company that has opportunities. You could go work for the union, or you could do your own. I mean, whatever you want to do, let me know. I'm 100% supportive over it. And I said, great. So I decided that I'm just going to go out on my own. So I bought some hand tools and, you know, started knocking on doors and applied for my plumbing license, and just continued to work on there until I was completely busy with one truck, and then added a second truck, you know, and it just kind of kept growing from there.
That's incredible. And I'm always blown away by how industrious people like you are. Because if the situation was reversed, and I mean, everyone's different. And I love what you said too about how Arthur was like, no, like I'm happy the way I am. And
Yeah.
I think as a lot of the time when we talk about jobs and careers, we don't necessarily think about lifestyle. And it sounds like you were very intentional and very self-aware at a pretty young age about what you wanted to do and the kind of life that you wanted to live.
Yeah. I really did want to advance. I didn't want to only replace my dad's income, which I eventually did before the money ran out. So, and I continued to, you know, live at home and help my mom with all the bills. But I was ambitious. I wanted to do more, and I just kept working. And I had a really good work ethic, and that came from my dad, because he would, you know, we saw him work 6-7 days a week. He'd come home, and then we'd work on his truck. And, you know, we always had weekend projects where, you know, we were fixing stuff and we were doing this and that. So I wasn't afraid of putting the time in.
That's awesome. So let's talk about that transition from you working with Arthur to starting to knock on doors. I don't mean to date you, but do you remember how long ago that was?
Gosh. Okay. So let's see, that could have been about 28 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
So mid 90s, something around there.
Something like
What do you, I know it's been a while and you're in a completely different place than you were then, but can you remember some of the feelings that you experienced while you were there? Like what were some like thoughts and that kind of came into your mind? Were some challenges that you had to overcome?
Yeah. I mean, so some of the things that I had to, you know, what I did and what I had to overcome was, you know, initially was resisting to go out with my friends, because a lot of them were, you know, sort of like, a lot of them were, you know, their dads were doing well. Some of them, their dads bought businesses for, and they were doing really good. And, you know, I had to resist on going out with them a whole lot because, that would have held me back. But what I decided at a very young age is that I was going to work really hard at two things. And I've always tried to keep my current thing to trying to perfect two or three things instead of trying to do everything. And back then it was either I'm going to fix somebody's plumbing or I'm going to look for somebody that needs to get their plumbing fixed. So I spent 6-7 days a week going and knocking on doors. I used to go into management companies, leave my business cards. I used to drive around and go to big commercial areas, and I would walk around and introduce myself to store managers and tell them, hey, I'm a plumber, I'm just starting out. And my thing was, I'll do the first job for free. Give me a chance to earn your business. And I would leave my card and I'd go around and just talk to people. And if my phone rang, hey, I got a job. So I'd go do number 2, which is fix somebody's plumbing. And I'd do that from morning to evening every single day. And I got to a point after 3 or 4 months, I got really busy. I had more work than I could handle. Everybody was calling me and I didn't do as much marketing. But then I got a call from my aunt and she said, hey, your cousin is looking, for work. He doesn't want to go to school anymore. And it kind of reminded me of me when I was going to Arthur. I said, yeah, have him come in and I'll help him. So I worked with him. He became a really good plumber and he became fan number 2. So when he was busy, I'd let him do all the work and I'd go do marketing again. And then that would, create the work, and then we'd both be busy. And then I was looking for a number 3 truck.
So was your goal always focused on growth? Like, I want to see how big I can get, or did you have a vision in mind?
I always wanted to see how much I could grow. From a young age, I was really curious. I had an uncle that was very wealthy, and we used to go and visit him quite a bit, and I would just ask him a lot of questions, and just, and then I noticed that, hey, if he was an immigrant, if he came in with no education and I don't have any education, I was kind of comparing myself. I go, if I could work hard enough, I could probably get to where he's at, right? So doesn't seem like he's got anything different. I mean, he's just a hard worker and a really smart man, but he's just really kind of forced himself into that position. So I think I could do the same thing. So everything was done by, just working really hard and forcing myself into, trying to get to that level.
Gotcha. That's a true American dream mentality there for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like your basic keys to success early on, because a lot of technicians, as I'm sure now is, a lot of technicians go out on their own, they start their own shops, and a lot of them fail or they don't do what they expect to do. But it sounds like your curiosity and your discipline really gave you the 2 grounding tools you needed to just keep at it.
Yeah, and my wife helped quite a bit too, because we got married at an early age.
You got married in addition to all of this?
Yeah. So she was, we were dating at the time I was doing plumbing, and then we got engaged. And when we got married, she came in and started answering the phones and handled a lot of the paperwork stuff, which actually freed me up even more to go out and do marketing. And in the beginning, I was just, doing a whole lot of marketing, so, and I would go out and do some plumbing as well. And I'd look for apprentices, and sort of the same thing I'm doing now. It's no different.
So basically what you're doing now, does your wife still work for you?
She does. Yeah. She's working with me still. Yeah.
That's amazing. Does your cousin still work for you?
No, he doesn't. He's running his own plumbing company.
Holy crap. That's amazing. Yeah. Before we get into marketing, which I want to talk about, what advice would you give to anyone out there who's also working with their significant other at a service business?
Which is hard to do, but I'm going to try to, I try to do this all the time, is not talk about work when you get home, just kind of leave it at that, and always agree to disagree, because it's going to happen a lot. So we agree to disagree, and we both respect what one another does. And it hasn't been easy, but if your relationship is strong enough and there's that bond, then things work out. Until today, she took some time off because we had our two boys and she wanted to raise them. She didn't want to bring on a nanny or anything. So she took a lot of time off of work and raised the boys. And now they're both teenagers and she spends more time at work now.
Gotcha. How old are your boys?
14 and 17.
Oh, such lovely ages.
Yeah, great ages.
So talk to me a little bit about the marketing that you did in those early days. What were some of the techniques that you implemented and how would you rate their success?
So back then I was more of a commercial plumber. So my marketing back then was traditionally going to management companies, introducing myself, taking them, sometimes I'd take them desserts, platters, I'd send them cards, I'd find out, create relationships with the people that were managing buildings. And I would remember their birthdays, I'd send them birthday cards, I would always give them a call, let them know I'm here. We wouldn't stop marketing. One of the things that we continued to do, and I had my entire staff doing back then, was we had coupons behind all of our business cards. And for the guys, it was, hey, every time you go to the bathroom, okay, you turn that around and leave it on the urinal. There's that flush valve on the urinal. So you stick the card between the flush valve and the urinal and it's always there.
Actually, believe it or not, I can't really picture a urinal right now.
Yeah, I know.
But I'll just credit that to the fact that I haven't been in many men's public restrooms.
Yeah, that's right. And with everybody else, it was just leaving business cards. Leave business cards, talk to everybody. We'd go to restaurants. I'd leave business cards. I'd talk to people about plumbing, tell them what a great trade it is. And we had so many, people that were chefs, that were busboys, that were just, hard workers that came in and worked and eventually advanced to becoming plumbers. So
this marketing strategy wasn't only for building up relationships with clients. This was also for finding people with the right skills who could be molded into effective plumbers.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody that wasn't afraid of getting dirty, somebody that wasn't afraid of putting long hours in because the trade, that's what it needed back then. And so it would go from, hey, you get somebody that has overserved you, did a great job, give them a business card. And we had different ones. One of them where, we would hire them and it had a picture of one of our trucks and said, what's missing? And then it was a guy without, with a blank face and it said you. So we would give those to people. And then we would also give the coupons to restaurants. I would go into busy malls. I'd walk from door to door. And then when we got into residential, we'd do the same thing. We would canvas. We had teams when the guys weren't busy. Hey, let's meet in this city and let's spread out. We'd get door hangers. Let's go, put out door hangers. If somebody's watering their lawn, hey, if you have a plumbing problem, I'm in the area. Let me take a look at it. If it's something simple, or I'll fix it for free. Right. So we would do whatever we could to get, earn people's business.
Gotcha. And so just to kind of get my timelines right again, this is also still kind of in the late 90s, early aughts. So before really the advent of internet and technology.
Exactly.
But I would imagine that those guerrilla relationship building tactics would still be applicable today.
Absolutely. They're still applicable. And I think that they still work. You just have to go in there and do it. A lot of people, because they rely too much on digital and don't do it. I think that's wrong. We need to continue to do that. And until now, I continue to give out business cards and do things like that to bring good people in or try to get business, although we don't do as much commercial nowadays. So
talk to me a little bit about that, because I've spoken to residential businesses that don't touch commercial with a 10-foot pole. I've spoken to residential businesses that do like 5% commercial. And then I've talked to commercial businesses that don't do any residential. So what was that decision factor for you moving from commercial to residential? And tell me how it made the most sense for your business.
So we did make a shift. We had a really big commercial business, and we completely shifted into residential. And it took a little bit of time to make the shift, but we wanted to be really good at one thing. And that one thing back then was residential. That's where I saw, the biggest opportunity. So we continued to run our commercial business until, it got to a point where the pricing had gone up significantly. They weren't really willing to pay the pricing that we had, because a lot of the commercial customers are looking for
The cheapest.
the cheapest, and they're looking, and I understand why, because we end up on their financial statement and it has to look good, so that's totally understandable. But on the residential side, it was more of an emotional buy. You didn't end up on anybody's financial statement. So we were able to give a better service and charge, more for the better service. So we wanted to do more of that. And eventually our commercial customers, there was a few of them that I ended up giving to some of my friends that had commercial businesses, and I introduced them when the residential side grew, and we decided that we're going to completely get out of it. But I think commercial business is great business. The problem I think it is with the residential company is you just have to have a different team that actually services commercial, because it's a different business model.
I'm hearing a theme in our conversation, which I think you're actually really, really good at naturally, is really laser focusing on one thing. And instead of distracting yourself with a lot of different goals, you are able to hyper focus into one thing. And it definitely seems like you've applied that to your business. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've applied it to my, personally myself when it comes to what I'm doing in the business. But being the best at one or two things, or being laser focused at a certain goal, just allows you to become better. In today's time, I'm laser focused right now on opening up locations. So my goal is to open up 4 this year. And every day I wake up and I'm thinking about, am I moving that needle towards accomplishing that goal? Are we sending out enough letters for acquisitions? Are we doing the startup meetings? Is everybody on track to do the stuff we need to do? So it's just, in my opinion, it's about being great at a few things instead of trying to be a master of many things. And I've always tried to, be great at a few things instead of trying to do everything.
I think that's amazing advice. And a lot of very famous entrepreneurs have that mindset as well, which is no doubt why you've been as successful as you are.
Thank you.
So let's go to actually where you are now. So tell us a little bit about the markup of your business. How many technicians do you have? How many trucks do you have? How many locations? Just give me the elevator pitch profile.
Okay. So today we're a statewide company. So we have locations from Southern California all the way up to Northern California. We have 10 locations. We just opened up our 10th location.
Congrats.
Thank you. About a month ago. And I think we might have about 250. Maybe we have more trucks than that because the last acquisition added some. And I don't know exactly how many plumbers we have, but I'm pretty sure we have as many as trucks we do, give or take some. And our goal is to become a nationwide company. So we're sending out letters. We're trying to do acquisitions. The last one we did, the owner of a small company, he had about a $3 million operation, and he was really good at doing installs. He loved being in the field. He didn't like any aspect of the other side of the business about the phones and managing it and doing all that. So when we acquired it, we gave him the role of just doing that and hired some people to take care of all the other parts of the business. And we believe that we're going to be able to grow it at least by 4 or 5 times by doing that.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Do you mind sharing your revenue numbers if you have them?
Sure. Yeah. We'll probably end up over 50 million this year.
That's incredible.
We're tracking over that. And our goal is to double that in the next 3 to 5 years. So we have a lot of work to do.
Wow. From 17 years old, shadowing a family friend to see if you liked plumbing to creating a $50 million plumbing enterprise is very, very impressive, John.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So I want to shift focus a little bit because I got a great view of your background and how you got to where you are today. So let's talk a little bit about tips, strategies, and tactics that other business owners can use to elevate their operations.
Sure.
And I'm going to start that conversation by asking you, what do you consider yourself an expert on?
Oh, gosh. What do I consider myself an expert on? I really can't say I'm an expert at one thing. I think what I really enjoy doing is I enjoy starting things.
Don't we all?
Yeah. I'm not an expert at finishing things, but I'd say I'm an expert at starting things. And I have, I think, a strength of also following through on the things I started. When I look at my profile, I'm a high quick start, which means that, I love doing new projects, doing new things, and I love following through on those new things that we're doing. So those are the two areas that I really enjoy doing the most, is starting locations and making sure I follow through until they kind of, gain their own wings, and are able to fly.
That's awesome. So you've mentioned in the course of our conversation, and also credit on following through, that's an area of weakness that I personally have, so I can definitely commend it in anyone else. You mentioned marketing quite a few times. You also mentioned that it's kind of a lot of what you do today. So talk to me a little bit about your marketing mindset. Is it one of the primary things that you focus on?
It's part of it. I focus on three things right now. One of them is that I'm the voice of the company, so I'm out there, all of our radio commercials, everything we have that's happening. I'm creating a lot of marketing content that has to do with personal stories, and I meet with the marketing team quite a bit. I talk to the managers about marketing. I pay attention to our call volume and to see if it's increasing. So marketing is one aspect of what I do. And, I look at this as part of marketing as well. We're doing a lot of social media marketing. I wrote a few books, and we have those out on the market where it's attracting people to our company. So I think marketing is always something that I'll be very close to from the beginning days and all the way until today. It's just changed quite a bit. I'm not knocking on doors anymore, but we are sending quite a few letters out, and, that's how we knock on doors now, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, also, if you're focusing on social media marketing, that's essentially where the new community is. That's where you can make the most impact. Are there any specific social media strategies that your team is currently utilizing to get visibility in your communities?
We're increasing our followers on social media. We have a video. We have a YouTube channel that we're focusing on. We're doing a lot of stories of our people. I've got my own YouTube channel. I do short little 3 to 5 minute talks, and I send it out to our team.
Public or private?
I send it out. It's public, but I send it out just to our employees every week. But it is public. Anybody could go in there and put my name down and view those videos.
Oh, so you wouldn't mind if I link some of those videos to the article where this will be hosted? Okay,
no,
great.
Not at all.
That's awesome. What are the names of your books, by the way?
So the first book I wrote, I actually brought the books with me, but I left it in my car. I'll give it to you after the end. So the first book I wrote has to do with the plumbing trade and people coming into the trade. It's called the Secret to Real Wealth.
The Secret to Real Wealth.
Yeah, and it's about how I got into the trades. The book is written about the trades being plan B for me. And it was a really good plan B. My plan A was to go to school and become an attorney, and because that's what my parents wanted. But, plan B worked out to be really good. And there's stories about some of our team members that have become very successful, that have used plumbing as well. And they've created really good wealth for themselves and their family, working in the plumbing industry. The second book I wrote is called Creating 99 Millionaires. And the book is about us and our movement, what we're doing. We want to open up a nationwide company, and we want to impact the people that we work with and help them become millionaires and help them create personal wealth for themselves. So that's what the second book is about. And the third book I wrote is called Values First. And that talks about our organization's values. It has stories about how our plumbers use the values in the field, and how customers react, to them, by using those values. It talks about how we use the values in our own organization, how we recite the values, how we use the values before every meeting to talk about positive focuses and things like that. So all the books are designed to help the trade in one way or another.
Thanks. That's amazing. What are your values?
So our values are faith, integrity, respect, service, and teamwork.
I love that. How did you land on those 5 values?
So we did a values exercise about, I'd say, 7 or 8 years ago, where we brought a team of people into a room, and these were influential people in our company, from managers to just people inside the call center and other places. And we did an exercise. It was an all-day exercise where we circled what was important to us. We talked about it, and then we brought it all together and we looked at what we had in common. And those 5 areas are what stuck out that we all had in common. There was a lot of faith-driven people in the company. A lot of people, believed in integrity, doing things the right way. Respect on how we treated people, how we talked to people was another really important one that kind of stood out. And we looked for common denominators. And those were the common denominators. And once we put those 5 words together, then we said, what does that mean to you? And we started talking about what that means. And we've created some sentences under each one. And those became our values. And until today, we read those values before every meeting. We recite them. A lot of times before our all-team meeting, we go through them. Any group event where we have 3 or 4 people before a meeting starts, we read our values, and then we create stories around our values. So
That's awesome. So you mentioned before, and I really want to get into the acquisition component.
Sure.
Especially given your goals of being a nationwide company. How do you ensure that your values remain consistent as you acquire new locations and bring on new team members?
So we, in the interview process, when I'm interviewing somebody to bring them in, early on, I introduce the values. One of the questions I like is, what do you like most about it? What's your favorite value there? And tell me why. And we talk about it. And it just gives me a good perspective of where they're coming from. We don't look at our values and make it a deal breaker. Hey, you either, but what we try to do is we try to bring people in and see if we can instill those values also into people to better their lives, right? So it's about, improving, making things better. We try to do that every single day by reading the values. I give every new hire the values first book. I hope they read it, but we've recorded it in an audible version as well. Some people want to hear it. So
nice. What advice would you give to other companies that are looking to acquire service businesses to grow their own?
So some of the issues I've had when it came to acquisitions, and we still have it up until today, is the culture. A lot of times, it just does not fit. Even though that we bought this small business, we were just talking about it on the way here. We've got so many people that are just, they just don't like the change, and most people don't like change. So I would say that, anytime you're buying a business, understand that there's going to be change. Some people are going to leave. They're not going to like, what you're bringing to them, or anything else. And it's happened, we've done 2 or 3 acquisitions, and almost every time, there's a group of people that just don't like it, and they just end up going somewhere else. And you have to be able to just deal with that. Essentially
roll with the punches and just get, in order to grow, you need to there's going to be some difficulty and some challenges. So just prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. And I continue to, call my manager that's actually running that division and encourage him that don't worry about it. We got your back. He's doing everything he can to kind of make the change very much, not as fast, so people don't, he doesn't want to rock the boat too much, but some people just don't like it and they want to leave, and we're supporting them. I just flew up north in this new location we started, and I helped them do some interviews. So it's just my whole follow-through method as well is I want to follow through until I feel like he's got it, and then I can, he's on his own. He can make it happen.
So essentially being present in those first few months after the acquisition, making sure, checking in regularly, seeing how
Exactly.
the lead is doing at that location. And I imagine your YouTube strategy was also implemented to try and stay connected with all these locations as you move on.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. What do you look for when you're acquiring a new business or preparing to open a new location?
So we research the market. We look at, first of all, I mean, we're a service plumber, so we look at how old the homes are. We look at, we don't pay a whole lot of attention to, what the competition looks like, but we do look at it a little bit to see, who is the people that are out there, what kind of service are they providing. Is it is there a lot of small companies? Is there a lot of big companies there? We look at the age of the homes. We look at the income ratio of the homeowners, and we just look at the market size as well to see, how big of a market. We look at the marketing. We see, what kind of impact we can make, where people are, what kind of radio stations are there, what kind of internet ads we could put on there. So we just look at the whole team kind of gets together and looks at it. We evaluated a bunch of different areas, which ones would actually be good for us. And then we start sending out letters initially to see if we can do an acquisition. Because if there's a small company, they've been in the market for a while, there is a little bit of a head start you get when you acquire a small company. We look at what the owners want out of the business, if they want to stay with us. And if they do, what do they want to do? If there's a part of the business that they want to focus on to enhance and better. And then basically we just go in there and we either start from scratch or we acquire something and use that as a platform for us to grow.
If you approached me about acquiring my service business, I would love to. You're such a pleasant person to talk to. I'd be like, I trust you, take it. But what advice would you give to small businesses that maybe have that end goal in mind of, I eventually want to sell this business and move on to something else? How can they prepare to be acquired by someone like you?
So a lot of things we look at is, what is their customer base like? Are they loyal customers? Are they calling them back over and over again? The best thing you can do if you want to sell the business is to have loyal customers, have customers that keep calling you back, have repeat customers, because we look at that. We look at what is the customer base like, and are these customers repeat? Are they coming back? Do they enjoy the service? So that's an area that I would look at. I would look at how I could take care of my customers and how I could grow my customer base, because the bigger it gets, the more valuable it becomes. The other thing that we really look at is what the owner is looking for. Sometimes people want to retire and they just want to give up the business, but sometimes they want to stay with the business and they've gotten it to a certain point and they want to see it become bigger. And that's what we want as well. So we're like, we look at it and go, okay, if you've taken it up to $2 million and you've done a great job, how can we work as a team so you don't have to wear every hat, you don't have to answer the phones and go out and do the plumbing and do all this, because we have the back, we have our management company that has a call center, we do accounting, we do all of that stuff, so you can focus on what you're good at. Like this last one, he really enjoyed doing installs. And he had a huge team of installers that, loved to, and they had all the technology in the world. They were doing, the pipe pulling, they were doing all kinds of different underground technology, and he enjoyed running that crew. And that's all he wanted to do. So we said, okay, great. So now, why don't you run that crew and also help us, do all the installs for all the Northern California divisions? And he's like, great, I'd love to do that. So he's in his element. He's loving it. He's out there running his installers, and now he's got more work than he can handle, and he's adding installers. While we brought in a really good manager to start growing the technicians and getting the field staff going, and we brought the call center into our main office where they don't have to book the calls anymore because they weren't doing all that great of a job anyway. And everybody can now focus on that one or two things that they could be great at instead of wearing so many different hats. And and not being able to grow.
Back to that focus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Much.
That's awesome. That's wonderful information. Thank you for sharing. I want to get into your relationship with ServiceTitan, but before we do, you mentioned that you focus on three things. We talked about marketing. And we also touched on evaluating the market with, in terms of acquisition and growing. Are there two other things that you focus on that we haven't talked about yet?
So the main other thing I focus on is opening up branches. So every quarter I need to open one up, and I try to get in front of that. So we've got multiple meetings that we do. We just had one this week where we have a to-do list. Everybody needs to go out there and get their things done. We've actually already have an internal manager that wants to go into that location. So we've got a move plan for him. We've got some marketing efforts that we're doing right now. So I run those meetings every single week until we get to a point where basically that office is running on its own. It's doing really well, and it's started to grow on its own, and it's already in that market. Then I move on to the next one. I'm sending out a lot of letters to different markets that we want to get into. So right now we have a team that sends out anywhere from 500 to 1,000 letters a week to owners of plumbing companies, asking them if they're ready to retire, if they want to stay on, what is their goals, if they've considered selling. And I have my number on there, and I get some calls, and I meet with owners. I talk to them. I ask them, what they'd like to see. I try to see if it's a fit, if their goals align, if whatever it is, to see if those are things that we can do. And the third thing I mainly focus on is assisting my COO or any of our managers with whatever they need. So the third thing is, I'd like to serve them. So I'd like to find out what they need, what I could help them with, who I could have them meet with, who in the company can actually, help them more than I can. So I look at ways to assist in any way possible. But right now my COO is out, so I'm doing a lot of his work. So besides what I'm doing a lot of the work that he's doing as well. But it's okay. I know it's temporary, so. And
you took an hour out of your day to talk to me. I'm even more grateful.
It's okay. This is important to me. So.
It is. I mean, it sounds like you're really, from talking to you, it sounds like you're very passionate about, one, talking about what the trades has to offer, and really spreading that message through your company. And also two, you're very passionate about empowering your team members, not just the ones that started with you, but the ones that come on. And I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit about kind of the way you approach acquisitions, opening up new branches, marketing, and that kind of stuff. Are there any other types of tips, strategies, and tactics that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share to your fellow contractors?
So what I do, I've got this little ritual I do every morning. So I wake up at 5:00 on the dot. I do my best to go to bed early so I could get my 7 hours of sleep and get up at 5. And I take a portion of my day besides exercising in the morning to read my goals. I read my goals. I look at my 1-year goals. I look at my 3-year goals, my lifetime goals. I look at my quarterly goals. And then I look at my agenda for the day. And I try to connect and see if I'm doing something every single day to move closer to what I want to do. And I've broken it out into 5 different sections. And one of them is my family goals. I have my business goals. I have my health goals, spiritual goals, and I've got my personal goals as well. So I just look at it and just make sure that I purposely plan to get the things that I want my life to be like, to do every single day. And it takes me about 30 to 45 minutes to do that. But it gives me a good perspective of how the day is going to go. And that I am purposeful. I'm not just showing up. Because what I've done is, you show up to work, there's always going to be something to do. If you're not purposeful about doing certain things, then your day will be filled and nothing will get done, right? So nothing at least important will get done.
That's definitely what I'm learning now too. I think that's great advice. So you were one of actually the first customers on ServiceTitan. So you've been with us for a very long time. Can you tell us a little bit about how that decision came to be?
Yeah, I met Vahe and Ara when they first started the company, and we met through a mutual friend. Off the bat, what's there not to like about Vahe and Ara? They're just great guys, and they're hard workers. So we decided back then we were on a different platform, and there was a lot of frustrations we had, and there was a lot of limitations. And we knew what we wanted out of our software. We knew that marketing was changing. We wanted some robust reports when it came to cradle and grave reports, where the customer's coming from. So I could put my money more into the ones that are working and take it out of the ones that aren't. So when I met them, it was fascinating because I met another company before that, and they told me everything they can't do, right? So it was a little frustrating because it was like, oh my God, these guys don't want to do anything. They just, they're telling us everything we can't get done. And that's the company I'm with right now. And Vahe is like, John, we could do anything. You just tell me what you want. It's going to take time, but we could do it. And they eventually did. I mean, everything we wanted, went on into the pipeline, and they did it. And I remember early on, Vahe would be working till like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and then I, call in the morning, we'd have a call, and he's like, yeah, I've been working on this all night to get it done. And it's doing it. I'm like, man, you got to be the hardest working guy I know.
From you, that's a big compliment.
Yeah. I mean, he was just working at it to get it done. And they developed the best software you can have for plumbers. So it was like, let's build it. And I had multiple locations back then as well. And he said, John, if we could get it to work for you, it could work for everybody. And I said, that's true, because most companies are going to be running a single operation, single location. And it was fascinating. I don't interact with the software as much as I used to back then, but right now it's just kind of, a lot of new things are coming out and we're learning about it. So at this point, the industry is making it better, which is great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us from the beginning, and now coming in to talk to us now about your journey and how you've grown and your goals. I think this has been a really inspirational talk, and I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. Likewise. Right now our goal as a company is to become a nationwide brand. So we've filled the state of California. We've gone into Arizona, and we'd like nothing more to focus and become nationwide, help small business owners. If there's anybody that wants to join our movement, we're happy to talk about it and do that. And that's kind of our goal right now. And ServiceTitan makes that a lot easier because of all the things it helps us do.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed my chat with John. In case you missed it, he wrote 3 books, and we're giving away copies for free. That's right. The first 100 people to review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and email me a screenshot of their review will receive one of John's 3 books: Values First, Creating 99 Millionaires, or The Secret to Real Wealth. Honestly, they're all pretty great. It's gonna be hard to choose. So go ahead and send me a screenshot of your podcast review, plus which book you want, to podcast@servicetitan.com. That's podcast@servicetitan.com.
The grit and know-how required to tackle your community's toughest jobs hasn't changed, but the way companies run their business has. ServiceTitan is the only field service software that was born in the trades, built for the trades. If you're interested in seeing what ServiceTitan can do for your business, request a demo at servicetitan.com/trades, and we'll send you a new Milwaukee tool set, plus a free iPad when you sign up. That's servicetitan.com/trades. You've been listening to Toolbox for the Trades, presented by ServiceTitan, the leading home and commercial field service software. Please subscribe to Toolbox for the Trades wherever you get your podcasts to hear all of our episodes. Want to learn more? Check out servicetitan.com/podcast. Thanks for listening.